the oldest river in North America, nearly 300 million years old. Once part of an ancient river that was here long before the Appalachian Mountains were even formed. The ironically named New River is a geological treasure. Formed by the joining of the South Fork and the North Fork in Ashe County, North Carolina, the New River flows north into Virginia and West Virginia, where it joins the Kanawha River. From there, it flows into the Ohio and then Mississippi rivers before emptying into the Gulf of Mexico. The entire journey takes each drop of water about 6 months. The New River was important to early Native Americans. Archaeologists have found over 160 Native American sites along the New, ranging from small encampments to larger seasonal villages.
To the Native American folk, this was a really important hunting ground and fishing ground. No tribe really claimed this as their own, although there's tons of activity and tons of evidence, archaeological evidence and other proof that they spent a lot of time in this river. You ask any farmer who's plowed up a field along the bank of the river, and they'll find millions of arrowheads and other artifacts from native populations that were here. And so all the history shows that they spent tons of time here, but never permanently living here. They kind of came in, went. So the Cherokee came up from the south and spent a lot of time here, and other tribes from Virginia and the north came down through here, but they used the river quite a bit.
The first recorded European exploration of the New River was by a group of hunters and traders sent by Abraham Wood in 1671. Looking for land to settle his people, the Moravian leader, Bishop Augustus Gottlieb Spangenberg, visited the Ashe County area in the mid-1700s. Not believing that there was enough flat farming land to settle his fellow Moravians, the bishop declared, "We are in a region that has perhaps been seldom visited since the creation of the world. We are some 70 to 90 miles from the last settlement in North Carolina and have come over terrible mountains and through dangerous ways."
I've always wondered about how the New River got its name, because it certainly isn't a new river. It's one of the oldest in the world. And there's several theories, of course. But I like the story of Bishop Spangenberg, the Moravian, who came up here looking for a new Moravian colony since they had outgrown the one they'd set up in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And he came up here at the wrong time of year, of course. He came up in the wintertime, which is not a good time. He came up the wrong way. He came up into Blowing Rock, which is a pretty stiff climb. And if you read his diary, they had to take the packs off the horses and try to keep the horses from falling over backwards. But he described several places in Ashe County he found this river. And, of course, the theory is if you find a river, you can follow it to its source and you'll find civilization. Well, he started following it and came on through what is today Ashe County from some of his descriptions of the landmarks. But before he got into what is today Alleghany County, or close to Virginia, he figured out that this river was not going to take him to civilization. It was only taking him deeper into the forest. So they turned east and made their way back down into the Yadkin River Valley, and he told everyone he had found a new river. And people who came up here, that must be Spangenberg's New River. So I've often wondered if that's really the way the New River got its name.
There's all kinds of stories as to why the name came from, and I think what happened, one of the most common stories I hear, and it's probably the most unexciting, but probably the most true, is that as they came from the east and they crested the Blue Ridge Mountains and got to the top, there was a whole new river down there that they didn't anticipate, and so that's where the name, that kind of stuck. Oh, there's a new river down that valley down there. The other story I hear a lot, and then maybe this is better, is the German settlers came from the north. They came down from like Pennsylvania, German Dutch, came down through the Appalachians from Pennsylvania. And the Native Americans, I think it's still believed today, called the river the Kanawha, which is what it forms down in West Virginia. The New and the Gauley form the Kanawha River. And there is some speculation that the Germans at the time couldn't really speak the native language, and so they kind of messed around with that word, and then New was what came out of Kanawha.
The real fact of the matter is that no one really knows the exact story of how the New River got its rather ironic name. Some suggest that it was named the New simply because it was not known to early Atlantic coast explorers, but that lacks the romanticism of some of the other stories. One of the strangest stories involving the New occurred in the mid-20th century. A seaplane experiencing mechanical problems crash-landed into the river.
And it was having problems, and it landed and it tore up one pontoon a little bit, but it made a successful landing. And they worked on the plane. It was there for several days, and they got it repaired and got a bulldozer in to knock some rocks out of the way, and the thing actually took off and left there. So it had to spread by word of mouth, and somehow word got to Warrensville. And of course, when we were out there, the side of the road it's hard to find a place to pull off to see the thing, because the whole county, I think, turned out to see that thing sitting in the middle of the New River.
In the 1960s, the river faced its greatest threat since the last ice age. In the name of progress, the Appalachian Power Company applied for a license to build a 2-dam hydroelectric facility that would have significantly changed everything about the new. Over 42,000 acres of farmland would have been flooded, and 2,700 people would have had to been relocated. At first, it seemed to be a done deal. But then it became known that the new lake would be raised and lowered as needed to flush the chemicals out of the river that were being dumped into it in West Virginia. This could have potentially created vast mudflats and bogs in Ashe County as the water level was drawn up and down.
Well, I kept up with it, and of course I was not for it. It was going to dam it up all the way to Warrensville here. A lot of people sold the property to the Appalachian Power Company and bought property on higher ground. And of course, they could have kept it in the long run, but it was a good thing, because what we were going to be was a water closet for the West Virginia toilet bowl to flush their chemicals out down there. That's basically what it was going to be. They were going to draw it down so much every year to flush out the river from all the chemical plants down through West Virginia. Also produce power, but it had a secondary purpose. The federal government required them to build it so much higher so they could flush out the river. So we were just going to be the holding tank.
Although there were people on both sides of the issue, feelings in Ashe County rose against the project, often due to what was seen as an arrogant attitude displayed by the representatives of the Appalachian Electric Company as they sought to buy up property in the county.
So I wasn't too interested in it because I thought it was a done deal. There was nothing we could do about it. So I started looking at house plans and had my color schemes picked out and was ready to move, except one day 2 representatives from Appalachian Power Company came to my gate and wanted to buy our land, and I said, well, we're not quite ready to sell. And they said, it doesn't matter whether you want to sell to us or not. We'll put the money at the courthouse and you will have to go and pick the money up. And I said, we'll see about that. So they made me very angry with their attitudes and their arrogance, and I think I will join in the effort to stop this dam. And I spent 10 years of my life and my money and my time actually fighting the dam. Well, when it became common knowledge, I think it was kept secret for a while. They wanted to get the ground broken and start before it became common knowledge. But once it became common knowledge, then obviously we had opposition. There were 2 different viewpoints in Ashe County. Many of the people who wanted the dam looked at it as an economic boom to the county, a place where you could have a lake for recreation, and of course I'm sure that's possible. But the other side looked at the lost agricultural products, the loss of homes, the loss of family cemeteries that had to be moved. We looked at the fact that much of the agriculture in Ashe County, in that section of the county, would have been wiped out because all the big bottoms and farming goes on and down along the river as it runs through Scottsville and on down to the Twin, where the 2 rivers join. So they looked at it from a commercial standpoint, and I looked at it, and the people that fought with me looked at it as saving a heritage.
The fight to save the new became a true national fight, with even the creator of the TV show The Waltons weighing in. Presidents, presidential candidates, senators, newspaper editors, locals, everybody had an opinion.
Appalachian Power Company's attitude was, we're going to build the dam. It doesn't matter what local people think, because they're a bunch of farmers and there's nothing they can do to stop us. We're supposedly, I guess, uneducated and ignorant, certainly ignorant in the way of politics and how to make the government work for you. but they found a stubborn bunch of people, because the people that live along that river, many of them are the descendants truly of Americans who fought in the American Revolution, and the over mountain men who had land grants and whose descendants still live there on the land that they received as a reward for fighting in the American Revolution.
For over 10 years, the battle to save the New raged on. Scrapbooks of newspaper articles at the Museum of Ashe County History document the war.
The fight got picked up by Wallace Carroll, who was the editor of the Winston-Salem Journal at the time, and he made it his mission to make sure that there was an editorial in each paper in all 50 states, the biggest paper in each of the 50 states, to get the word out about this proposed project that was really not a very good project, and it was ill-conceived and would have flooded 42,000 acres of Ashe County and Grayson County and Alleghany counties. And so he took it out and got it. It was actually successful in getting it into 49 out of the 50 papers nationally. And we had congressmen from Illinois and Indiana and all across the country coming down here and floating the New River just to see. They were like, what is this river? Why are people making such a fuss about it? And they came down here and learned why it was such a spectacular river and why it needed to be protected.
And at the end, when it was going to Congress for the vote, we had the fight going on 3 different levels. It was going through Congress to be approved that the dam be stopped and the river be saved as a national scenic river. It was also going through the media with Wallace Carroll, because every major newspaper in the United States carried editorials on how damaging it would be to dam this new river. We also had it going through the court systems. We had a lawsuit in the court systems. So we were really fighting on 3 different levels. And so when it passed, I was elated and felt as if all my work had not been in vain and all of my trouble, because I felt like we had saved the river, and that section of the river can never be harmed because it is now a national river.
In 1998, President Clinton visited the Boggs Community Farm in Ashe County, along with Vice President Gore and numerous other dignitaries, to ensure that the New would stay as it is for future generations by designating it as an American Heritage River. The New River today is one of the healthiest rivers in the state of North Carolina. Various stretches of it in Ashe County enjoy some of the highest water quality designations.
The New River has some of the most designations. Right now, this section of river we're on right now is outstanding resource waters as well. Oldfield Creek down in Deep Gap and Fleetwood, that's outstanding resource waters. All the water that flows through Todd on the railroad grade is high quality waters. Big Horse Creek, before it was upgraded to outstanding resource waters, was high quality water. So we have some of the highest quality waters in the entire state of North Carolina in this river, and it's a special place from that perspective.
The New supports a wide diversity of aquatic life. The most famous inhabitant may be the salamander, known by many different names, including the snot otter, the water dog, and the hellbender.
Well, the river's got good water quality. One of the big things that people like to do to come up here is fish. We've got smallmouth and red eyes that are the 2 big game fish in this area. So a lot of people come up here to either float or wade and try to catch those fish.
I love to fish in the river. And in fact, in my book, I talked about how we'd take our fishing poles to school and set them up down next to the boys' toilet, which was next to the creek, and take turns being excused to check on our fishing poles and rebait, and come back and kind of let the guys know who had caught what. And we used to catch one fish called a silverside. It grew maybe 5 or 6 inches long. Pretty little fish, and I've never seen one since.
We've got a number of other wildlife, and one of them, just last week, we were doing surveys for a salamander called the hellbender. And the hellbender is a salamander, averages here in the river about 18 to 24 inches. and it's a large salamander, and what it needs is very clean water. It's very sensitive to pollution in the water, and so by doing these surveys every year, we're trying to get an idea of its population and make sure the population is seeing if it's staying stable, going down, or going up, because it does indicate good water quality. They're very sensitive to pollution.
Yeah, well, the three of us were fishing one day, me and Bill Eller and R.A. Turnmeyer, and pulled out a big water dog. And of course, you don't lift them out, you slide them out, because they're heavy. I slid the thing up on the rock, and of course it was flipping and snapping. And said, what do? We really hate to lose our hook, because we were young and hooks cost money, probably about a penny a piece. I said, well, I don't know, reckon we could work it out? R.A. Turnmeyer said, I'm not touching that thing. Bill Eller said, I'm not either. So I finally said, well, if you guys aren't touching it, I'm not either, because if that thing clamps down on you, Mom says it don't turn loose till it thunders. So who's got a knife? And we cut the line, let him slide back in the water.
The riverbanks of the New are also home to numerous bird species.
Birdlife, there is, especially during the spring and fall, there's a migration of a lot of the the birds using the river, a lot of warblers. Spring is a wonderful time to come see warblers on the river. We have warbling vireo that is found along the river, and it's kind of a rare bird, but they do nest along the river during the summer. We have those. Then we've got, your basic birds like the cardinals, kingfishers, great blue herons. Osprey migrate the river. They don't stay here in the summer, but they do migrate. Occasionally we see bald eagles.
The New today, as it has been for many decades, is a major source of recreation, both for Ashe County residents and those from far away who have come to appreciate it for its beauty and uniqueness. Until you have canoed, kayaked, or tubed the New, it is hard to describe its many mysteries.
I think most people come up to these mountains for the recreation. They come to get away from the cities. They come to hike and bike and get on the river and fish and inner tube and boat. We've got a very unique river here, in that it's the oldest river in North America. It's got an average depth of 8 inches from Boone to where the forks come together in Virginia. It's a great family type river. You don't need any type of experience to float down it. It's less than a Class 1 rapid, and it's perfect for someone beginning to kayak. It's perfect for people that want to come out and hone their skill on it. But this is just a recreational wonderland up here. As far as finding places to get on the river, there's several parks, so you don't necessarily have to go through an outfitter. You can actually find these parks online, or you can find them through outfitters and say, hey, where's a place I can go just jump in the river with my kids? We've got the Todd Island Park that's 3 miles down the road from here. That's a great place for people to get in and just look for crawfish and play and enjoy the river.
Going forward, what is the biggest threat facing the New? In one word, mud.
The mud is one of the largest pollution sources in the river. When the river sections get impaired, and we don't have many impaired sections of the river, it's one of the healthiest rivers in the entire state of North Carolina. But the parts that are impaired are typically impaired because that silt and that mud gets in the river, and it's impaired because it doesn't support life like it should. The animals that live in the river really want a rocky bottom. The hellbender that is so famous here in the New River really needs just rock. The mud actually gums up their habitat, and they can't lay their eggs because their eggs need to be attached to rock, not to mud. The mud covers it up and suffocates the eggs. Same with a lot of the bugs that all these critters are eating. The smallmouth bass that we're famous for need those bugs to be healthy, for them to be healthy. And so if there's a lot of mud in our river, it really degrades that habitat. And so that's typically, if we have an impairment, it's usually that's why.
Another threat for the river would be trash. The river sits at the lowest point in the valley, so when it rains, everything comes into the river. I don't think people are out there just throwing their trash out. I know some do, but I try to have faith in the human population and think that maybe it's coming out of the back of their trucks and things. The number one things that we pull out of the river are plastic bottles, styrofoam, and shoes.
Well, as a young man, I always dreamed of taking a canoe trip from here to New Orleans. Of course, I never did it, and I'm too old to try to do it now, but as a young man, I always wanted to do that, and I'd try to get someone to go along with me. And we would start planning, but we usually backed out when we tried to see the magnitude of the thing and the dams between here and there. And when you see how wide and how much traffic's on the Mississippi, I don't know whether I'd want to be in it on a canoe or not.